Good evening, jolly tea drinkers. Welcome to bedtime tea. One more steep before sleep. Grab your tea and your cozy blanket. Get comfortable and allow me to read you a story. Take a deep breath and let's begin this journey together. Ready? Oh my goodness, you actually own this youth center? Asked Paulina loudly. Could you say that any louder? Quipped Mr. Coffee. Sorry, chuckled Paulina. She looked around in admiration. It's just a really cool thing. Well, thank you, Paulina, said Mr. Coffee. Today, Mr. Coffee, Miss T, and Paulina were at a youth center for a community basketball tournament. The trio were carrying boxes of their favorite supplies to a booth where the tea cafe would be providing free tea for the people. So you really opened this place just this year and this is your first event? Asked Alina Messina, known to her friends as Miss T. Well, I was a part of every step of the process, but I have a team at the Treadwell organization who did most of the legwork, said Sean Hansen, also known as Mr. Coffee. But today, remember, I'm just a volunteer like you. No one here knows that I am behind all of this. Okay, Paulina? I don't know why you're singling me out, but I get it. Fine, said Paulina. She lowered her voice. No one will find out from me that you're really Theodore Treadwell, founder of the Treadwell organization. Shh, Paulina, said Miss T. What? I whispered it, and nobody's even around us right now, said Paulina. You never know. The walls could have ears. Miss T scolded. Paulina, I really need to be able to trust you with this information that you basically forced me to tell you a few weeks ago, said Mr. Coffee. Are you trying to tell me right now that I made a bad decision? Fine, I will try not to mention it again today, she replied. Try really hard. Okay, said Paulina. Mr. Coffee looked around. My chief of staff should be around here somewhere. He grabbed his phone and started typing. So, where should we put our boxes? Asked Miss T. Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Coffee put his phone back into his pocket and said, You shouldn't have to carry that. Here, place your box on top of mine. Miss T did as he asked. Okay. Thank you. Oh, will you take my box too? Asked Paulina hopefully. Nope, he said as he walked away. Rude. Paulina chuckled. Mr. Coffee, that's not very nice. The ladies followed after him. Better be careful. Someone might say you're playing favorites. Well, that someone would be right, he replied. Miss T laughed. Come on, guys. Let's go find our booth. They walked into a room filled with tables. People were swirling around, setting up their booths. The trio walked around looking for their spot. Finally, Paulina pointed. Look, there's our booth. There was a large tea cafe sign on the front of their table. Oh, what a cute sign, said Miss T. You like it? Asked Mr. Coffee. I actually designed this one myself. Really? Said Paulina. You do graphic design too? Sean, are you secretly an artist? Asked Miss T. Calm down, ladies. It was just one sign, he said as he placed the boxes on top of the table. Yeah, but all of the other signs look just like this one, said Paulina as she placed her box on the table. Oh, that's because they liked what I created and used it as a template for the other signs, he said nonchalantly. Wow, that means you are the graphic designer for this entire event, said Paulina. You are really talented, said Miss T. Big Coffee doing big things, joked Paulina. All right, let's relax. It's no big deal, okay? Said Mr. Coffee. Now, how do you want to set up this table? The ladies glanced at each other with a smile. All right, said Miss T. Let's place the cups over there and the tea kettles over here. Ooh, are there any outlets we can plug into? There's actually one right here behind the table. Sweet, said Paulina. She playfully shook Mr. Coffee's arm and said, You hooked us up. She grabbed the power strip and equipment and started setting things up. I just wanted to make sure that we had what we needed, said Mr. Coffee as he rubbed his arm shyly. Thank you, said Miss T with a smile. She placed her hand on his arm. You're too good to us. He smiled back at her and said quietly so that only she could hear. So, I was thinking maybe after this we could... Mr. Hanson, there you are. Good morning, sir. Mr. Coffee looked up with a sigh. Good morning, Cade, Sean replied. Miss T, I'd like you to meet Cade Mitchell, my chief of staff. Cade, this is my friend Alina, owner of the Tea Cafe. Hello, Cade, she said. Pleasure to meet you, Miss T, said Cade. Paulina cleared her throat loudly. Oh, and that's Paulina, said Mr. Coffee, nodding his head in her direction. Good morning, Paulina, said Cade. Howdy, she replied irritatedly. Have all the vendors arrived? Asked Mr. Coffee. He guided himself and Cade away from the ladies to talk. Yes, Mr. Hanson, and the basketball players are currently warming up in the gym. Good, said Sean. Well, I'll be here setting up and working the booth with the ladies if you need me. But Cade... Yes, Mr. Hanson. Don't need me, said Mr. Coffee. Yes, Mr. Hanson, and Cade walked away. Mr. Coffee returned to the ladies who were in the middle of a conversation. All right, Miss T, said Paulina. That must have felt really good making that smooth steel during the game. Well, not really, said Miss T. It turned out that I actually stole the ball from someone on my own team. Oh, no, said Paulina. And then I threw the ball into the wrong basket. No, laughed Paulina. She covered her mouth. Oh, it was so embarrassing. Miss T shook her head. I vowed right then and there that I would never try to play basketball again. She laughed. Sorry I'm late to the story, said Mr. Coffee. When and where did this happen? The place where all embarrassing events happen in our lives, said Paulina. High school, replied the ladies in unison with a laugh. So true, Mr. Coffee laughed. So you're not into basketball at all? No, well, not playing, at least. She chuckled. You know, Cade's younger brother will be playing in the tournament today, said Mr. Coffee, so that might be fun for us to watch. Oh, really? She said. Yeah, I'd watch that. Will we finish here in time to watch the game? Asked Paulina. Or will we be working the entire day? Oh no, once the game starts, we're done, said Mr. Coffee. The trio worked together and set up the booth. 15 minutes later, everything looks great, said Mr. Coffee. It really does. Great work, team, said Miss T. She high-fived her friends. And just in time, too. Paulina nodded toward the other side of the room. Looks like people are arriving now. Okay, so what's the game plan? Asked Mr. Coffee. He rubbed his hands together with excitement. All right, I made it really simple, said Miss T. I brought 3 kettles. 2 are filled with 2 different types of tea, and the third one contains hot chocolate. Each of us can be in charge of 1 drink. Sound good? Yes, said Mr. Coffee. I call the hot chocolate, announced Paulina. Oh man, I wanted to do the hot chocolate, said Mr. Coffee, disappointed. You snooze, you lose, said Paulina. Sean, you can have the vanilla rooibos, Miss T said. Well, I guess that's the next best thing. Thank you, said Mr. Coffee playfully. Hot chocolate is still the best, boasted Paulina. It's the most popular. Perhaps that's because they don't yet know about the wonderfulness that is vanilla rooibos, responded Mr. Coffee. Wonderfulness? In your dreams, said Paulina. Well, why don't you serve it and find out? He asked. Nice try, laughed Paulina. The 3 friends cheerfully worked for an hour serving drinks to the people. So, how long has Cade been working for you? Asked Miss T. About 3 months, said Mr. Coffee. He came highly recommended from someone that I know. So far, so good. He seems to be very much on top of things, said Miss T. He is, said Sean, and as you can imagine, with all of the things that I do, I need someone to really stay on top of my schedule. Does he know about your secret identity? Asked Paulina. He does, and he is bound by a non-disclosure agreement, said Sean. Ooh, see, that's what millionaires do. Paulina snapped her fingers. Well, it can be hard to trust people these days. He stared daggers at Paulina. Why are you giving me that look? Said Paulina. I am a trusted confidant. I'm Robin. Oh, so what you're saying is that I can count on you? Yes. And if I ask for a favor, you'll do it? Yes. So you'll let me have the hot chocolate? No. They dissolved into laughter. You guys are officially my favorite comedy duo, said Miss T. You should do the halftime show. These games today are going to be way better than any halftime show, said Mr. Coffee. I heard that the best young ball players in the city are supposed to be here today, said Paulina. I think this is shaping up to be a great community event, said Miss T. Sean, you should be so proud. I believe this will be an unforgettable day, said Mr. Coffee with a smile. It was getting close to game time, and our favorite trio were having so much fun serving tea that they didn't realize how much time had gone by. After a while, a woman walked up to their table and said, Hello. Hello, and welcome to the tea cafe booth, said Miss T cheerfully. Would you like to try one of our delicious drinks? Asked Mr. Coffee. You are doing so well, Miss T whispered to him. I might need to hire you to work at the shop. He smiled and said to the woman, I have some delicious vanilla rooibos here that you simply must try. Or perhaps some hot chocolate? Paulina interrupted. Ooh, hot chocolate sounds lovely. Yes, please, said the woman. Coming right up. She poured the hot chocolate into a cup and smiled knowingly at Mr. Coffee and Miss T. She placed a cover on top and handed the to-go cup to the woman. Here you go. Enjoy. Thanks, said the woman and she walked away. And chocolate wins again, cheered Paulina. Ugh, get out of here, said Mr. Coffee with a chuckle. I have one word for you, said Paulina. Popular. Well, I have one word for you, responded Mr. Coffee. Oh yeah? What's that? Annoying, said Mr. Coffee. Paulina laughed. Okay, you guys are hilarious, chuckled Miss T. Hello, said a man who walked up to the table. Hello, and welcome to the tea cafe booth, said Miss T cheerfully. Would you like to try one of our wonderful teas? Or some hot chocolate? Asked Paulina with a smile. I think I'll take a cup of... The man looked at the signs on the table in front of each drink and read the one that Miss T was serving aloud. The Maple Breakfast Black Tea. Oh, good choice, said Miss T. She grabbed a to-go cup and began to pour the tea. Say, you're Alina Messina, owner of the tea cafe, correct? Yes, I am, she responded. I've been meaning to stop by the cafe to meet you in person, said the man. I'm so glad to have the opportunity to meet you today. Oh, well, hello, Mr. She trailed off. Emilio Calvin, he replied. Hello, Mr. Calvin. How may I be of assistance to you? Please, please, call me Emilio, he said. I would like to discuss a proposal with you to sell coffee from my company, Calvin's Coffee, in your cafe. Oh, well, our cafe is pretty tea-centric, said Miss T. We don't actually sell any coffee. She placed a cover on the to-go cup. So what I'm hearing is, this would be a tremendous opportunity for both of us, said Emilio, with a huge, unsettling smile. Calvin's Coffee could be the first and only coffee to be sold at the tea cafe. Though that does sound intriguing, I'm sorry, but I must politely decline your offer, said Miss T. But I thank you so much for your interest in my little cafe. She gave him the cup of tea. Emilio took the cup and said, I think if we had a chance to sit down and talk about it, I could get you to see things differently. No, thank you, said Miss T. Please enjoy the rest of your day. Perhaps we could have dinner to discuss it further, he persisted. I believe the lady said no, said Sean, as he stepped up beside Miss T and crossed his arms. Are we going to have a problem here? He said. And you are? Asked Emilio. Just a friend looking out for a friend, said Mr. Coffee. Uh-huh. And are you the co-owner of the tea cafe? Emilio asked. No, not at all. Well then, what business is any of this of yours? I'm looking out for my friend's well-being, said Sean. And you don't seem to be taking the hint. And what hint is that? She doesn't want your coffee in her cafe, sir. How about we let her decide that? Responded Emilio. I believe she already did when she told you no twice. How much clearer can she be? Again, this is none of your business, said Emilio. Again, if it concerns my friend's well-being, then it concerns me, said Sean more intensely. What did you say your name was again? I didn't, said Sean. Well, Mr. No-Name, perhaps you should be more concerned about your own well-being, said Emilio with a sinister tone. Is that so? Gentlemen, there's no need for this to escalate, Miss T interrupted. Mr. Calvin, please, my business partners, call me Emilio, he said, dropping his sinister tone momentarily. Mr. Calvin, thank you for your offer, but I am not interested, Emilio extended a card to her. Why don't you take my business card in case you change your mind? No, thank you, I won't, replied Miss T firmly, without taking the card. I believe she told you no 4 times now. Correct me if I'm wrong. Actually, don't correct me. Just leave, said Sean forcefully. Oh, Snapples, said Paulina. Emilio glanced at Paulina, then looked at Mr. Coffee angrily, but quickly changed his face to an eerily blank expression. This isn't over. Then he turned around, and the 3 friends watched him walk away. Oh, he was not going to take no for an answer, said Paulina. Alina, I'm sorry. I hope I didn't overstep, said Sean. I know you can handle your business. I just wanted to provide some reinforcement. No, I appreciate the backup, really. Thank you, said Miss T. Whew, that was captivating, said Paulina. All I needed was some popcorn. All right, show's over, said Mr. Coffee. Not for him, said Paulina. He made it sound like revenge was coming. I bet his coffee is just as slimy as he is. For real, remarked Miss T. Well, I'm not scared of him, so he can bring it. Yeah, and I've got your back, said Paulina. Well, now I am scared, joked Mr. Coffee. I don't even recall hearing your voice at all during that tense exchange. That's 'cause I knew you had it covered, said Paulina. Sure, he replied. Guys, my kettle is just about empty, said Miss T. How about you all? I actually gave the last of my hot chocolate to that woman, said Paulina. Yeah, my vanilla rooibos kettle is pretty much empty too, said Mr. Coffee. Well, we're out of supplies, said Miss T. It's not really a bad thing, said Mr. Coffee. It just means that all of your drinks were extremely popular. What was that? Asked Paulina. Nothing. Come on, just say it. You know you want to, said Paulina. All of our drinks were extremely what? Well liked, said Mr. Coffee. They all laughed. Excuse me, Mr. Hanson, Cade interrupted. Cade, said Mr. Coffee. Mr. Hanson, may I speak with you for a moment, please? Yes, ladies, I'll be right back, said Mr. Coffee. Okay, they said. Mr. Coffee and Cade walked out of earshot of the ladies. Cade, what's going on? Everything okay? Asked Mr. Coffee. Mr. Hanson, said Cade, speaking swiftly. I'm sorry, I know you said not to bother you, but... Cade, it's okay. Just tell me what happened. The grand prize is missing, Cade said nervously. Calm down, said Mr. Coffee. The grand prize ball? Yes, the ball that was signed by the NBA championship team. It's gone, said Cade. What? Are you sure? Don't worry, Mr. Hanson. I'll figure this out, and I will rectify the situation, sir, said Cade. Rectify the situation? The tournament is about to start, and this means that we don't have a grand prize for the winner of the raffle at the end. The ladies approached them, and Miss T said, Hey, we just heard that the game is about to begin. So they are sending everyone upstairs to the gym right now. You ladies go on ahead and I'll meet you up there, said Sean. Okay, said Paulina, and she walked away. Is everything okay? Asked Miss T. I'll have to get back to you with that answer, he replied. Miss T looked at him in confusion. It's nothing for you to worry about. Save me a seat? He asked her. Okay, she said. Well, you know where to find us if you need us. She turned, looked back at him once more, and then walked away. Mr. Coffee watched her walk away for a moment. Mr. Hanson, you don't have to worry. I'm handling this, said Cade. Cade, if it's okay with you, I'm going to take a look around for myself. An hour and a half later, the tournament was in full swing. Paulina and Miss T were in the gym watching from the bleachers. It had been a while since the last time that the ladies saw Mr. Coffee. Miss T was slightly worried. Paulina sat on the bleachers, munching on popcorn and enjoying the festivities. Miss T was unsettled. She constantly looked around. I wonder where Sean is, she said. No idea, but I'm sure he's around here, somewhere, said Paulina, as she threw a kernel of popcorn into her mouth. Why don't you try sitting down and enjoying the game? It's actually pretty exciting. I'll even share my popcorn with you. Maybe, she joked. I don't know how you can just relax like that. It's been over an hour since we've heard from our friend, said Miss T. What if something happened to him? What could possibly happen to him at the youth center? It's not like there are criminals running around. I don't know, but something seemed off when we were downstairs, said Miss T. Paulina continued to munch on her popcorn and watch the game. Well, remember, this is his event, so I'm sure there's a bunch of stuff going on that we're not aware of. Fires to put out, so to speak. Yeah, but something just didn't seem right, replied Miss T. Just then Mr. Coffee walked up to the ladies. There you are. We were worried about you, said Miss T. You were? Mr. Coffee replied. She was worried about you. I knew you were just fine, said Paulina. As always, thank you for your concern, Paulina. Anytime, she chuckled and nodded to the bleachers. Miss T saved you a seat. Thanks. Mr. Coffee sat down next to Miss T. The bleachers were crowded with family members and friends of the players. Everything all right? Asked Miss T. Yes and no, he said. Well, which one is it? It can't be both, said Paulina. Is there an issue with the tournament? Asked Miss T. He hesitated. The tournament is actually going really well. Then what's wrong? Asked Paulina. Oh, is the problem that you want to compete but you're too old? What? Said Miss T. Excuse you, I'm not trying to compete, and I am not old, replied Mr. Coffee with a laugh. Maybe not, but I did help you to laugh away some of that tension. So, come on now. What aren't you telling us? Asked Paulina. She turned and gave him her full attention. Mr. Coffee leaned in closer to the ladies. He lowered his voice and said, One of the raffle prizes has apparently been stolen. Whoa, someone stole from a charity event? Asked Paulina. That is so shameful. I can't believe it. Are you certain that it's been stolen? Asked Miss T. I'm pretty sure, said Mr. Coffee. I just spent the last hour and a half looking, but haven't been able to locate it. What is it? Asked Paulina. A basketball signed by the entire 2024 NBA championship team. Wow, said Paulina. Yep, the top winning raffle prize that we've already sold tickets for, by the way, is gone, said Mr. Coffee. Where's Cade? Asked Paulina. Why isn't he helping you look for it? He was with me for a while, but then he had to go take care of something for the event, said Mr. Coffee. Okay, so how can we help? Asked Miss T. Really? You don't mind helping me search for it? Of course not, said Miss T. I guess, said Paulina. I mean, of course not. Okay, when was the last time anyone saw it? Asked Miss T. Well, I saw it yesterday at the office, but Cade saw it this morning in the room where all of the prizes were being stored, said Mr. Coffee. And there wasn't anyone guarding that room, was there? There should have been, but I guess not, he said. So, it's an open community center, lots of people walking in and out. Anyone could have taken that ball, said Paulina. Ugh, I know. Mr. Coffee rubbed his head in frustration. Miss T stood up. Well, I'm going to take a look at the room. I already checked it, he said. Yes, but you may have missed something in your haste, said Miss T, just like that time that you couldn't locate that package at home, remember? She pointed to herself. I'll be going in with fresh eyes. Okay, I'm open to that. Let's go. He stood and they started walking together. Hey, wait for me, said Paulina. She quickly got up and followed them. The room search went quicker than expected and turned up nothing. Mr. Coffee crossed his arms and shook his head. I can't believe this. My first event and it gets sabotaged. It doesn't make sense, said Paulina. I know. Who would do this to you? Asked Miss T. I have no idea, he said. It could be anybody. Is that the only thing missing? Asked Miss T. Yes, everything else was fully accounted for, said Mr. Coffee. Huh. So the real question is, why would they only steal that one item? Asked Miss T. Right. It's like they purposely came into this room looking for that one thing, said Paulina. Did anyone else know about the prize? Asked Miss T. Well, yes, it was advertised as the prize to encourage people to purchase the raffle tickets, said Mr. Coffee. So, said Miss T, that brings our suspect list up to thousands of people, said Paulina. That's an extremely large exaggeration, but basically yes, said Mr. Coffee. Yikes, Miss T said defeatedly. I'm sorry to say it, Sean, but with so many people coming in and out of the youth center, it's going to be nearly impossible to catch the culprit. Miss T sat in a chair and continued to look around the room. Paulina stood in the corner, placed her hands on her head and looked up. Mr. Coffee paced back and forth. Okay, it's almost time for the drawing, said Mr. Coffee. Here's the solution. Instead of the ball, I give a check from the foundation as a prize. What do you think? You sound so excessive right now, and not in a good way, said Paulina. There's a good excessive? Well, depends on who you asked, she replied. So, you think I'm excessive because I want to give a check to a raffle winner whose prize has been stolen? He questioned. I'm just trying to find a replacement for the ball. Wouldn't that be giving away funds that could be used for the youth center? Asked Miss T. Wait, said Paulina. Mr. Coffee and Miss T both turned to look at Paulina. She pointed up. Look, security cameras. Ooh, can we access the security footage? Asked Miss T. I think we should be able to, yes. If not, security should know Cade, and he should be able to get us in. I'll call him. Great job, Paulina. He pulled out his cell phone, typed, and put the phone up to his ear. Why, thank you, sir, said Paulina, who did a playful curtsy. Miss T giggled. All right, where is the security office? It's near the front when you enter the building, said Mr. Coffee. Said Paulina. Maybe there's no one watching the surveillance, because wouldn't they have seen the thief and caught him? You really think so? Asked Miss T. Yes, if Someone was watching. Surely they would have tried to stop the crime or catch the criminal, right? Said Paulina. Cade isn't answering his phone. I'm texting him. Do you really think we need him in order to get us access to the security footage? Asked Miss T. I'm not sure, but let's head to the security office and see what happens, said Mr. Coffee. The trio made their way through the crowds to the office. The team stood inside of the security office while Sean tried once again to convince the security guard. Sir, I'm part of the planning committee for this event. I work for the Treadwell organization, and I can assure you that I am fully authorized to view that footage. Well, nobody told me that information, replied the security guard, and I'm not trying to lose my job by letting some random people into the security room. Sir, I can promise you that you will not lose your job for allowing me to view the security footage, Mr. Coffee insisted. I'm sorry, but someone has to authorize you before I can allow you to view any kind of security footage. The trio looked at each other and then walked away from the security guard to speak privately. What are we going to do now? Asked Miss T. I'm not sure. Cade hasn't answered any of my calls or texts. I don't get you, said Paulina. This is the perfect moment to flex your power by revealing your true identity that you said I could not mention, but you can totally mention it right now to get us to that security footage. Paulina's not wrong, Sean, said Miss T. Paulina? The trio looked at each other in confusion and then turned to face the security guard. Paulina spoke uneasily. Yes, she said with a question in her voice. It is you, said the security guard. We met at the mini-golf place like 2 months ago. You probably don't remember me. Paulina paused, stared at him with wide eyes, and said, Of course I remember you, Reggie, said the security guard. Reggie, repeated Paulina. It's so nice to see you again. It's good to see you too, Paulina. So, you work here? She stepped closer to him. Yes, I know, it's just a simple security job at a youth center. Oh, now, Reggie, there is nothing simple about you, said Paulina. You are doing this great work for the community. Helping the children is an honorable thing. It is? It is, said Reggie. You really think so? Yes. Because of you, I know that our children are safe here in this community center, continued Paulina. And as a matter of fact, thank you for your service. She clapped her hands and gave Miss T and Mr. Coffee a nod to do the same. They both began to clap. Oh, wow, gosh, Paulina, thank you, said Reggie. No one ever acknowledges the security team. People tend to just walk by and ignore us all day long until they need something. Well, I can assure you, Reggie, that she motioned to Miss T and Mr. Coffee, would never do that to you. Thanks, Paulina, he said. You know, if there's ever anything that you need, or if you want to go play some mini-golf sometime. Well, now that you mention it, Paulina interrupted, I do have a small favor to ask, and I hate to put you in this position, but my friend here is part of the committee for this event, and unfortunately, one of the raffle prizes has gone missing. Can you believe someone would try to steal from the children? It would truly be such a great help to us if you would just allow us to take a quick look at the security footage, please. I don't know, Paulina. It's still against the rules. Reggie, what if I told you that I know the founder of the Treadwell organization himself and could promise that you would not lose your job over this? You do? You can? Yes, we are very good friends, said Paulina. I could call him right now and he would answer, and I know for a fact that he would authorize this for us. Really? It's true, and I can assure you that we are only trying to catch a criminal who stole one of the raffle prizes. So, will you please allow us to have a look? Okay, come on back. Reggie nodded his head and walked into the back room. Oh, great! Thank you, Reggie. Thank you so much. Paulina turned, looked at Mr. Coffee and Miss T, and did a silent cheer. Mr. Coffee and Miss T stood there for a moment in shock. Well, I am speechless, said Mr. Coffee. Join the club, said Miss T. Then they followed Paulina and Reggie into the other room. They sat in the room and watched the screen as Reggie scrubbed through the video footage from the past couple of hours. Oh, Reggie, this is all so high-tech, said Paulina. You should be working for the government or something. Laying it on a little thick, aren't we? Mr. Coffee whispered to her. Hey, you do your job and I'll do mine, Paulina responded. Look, said Miss T as she pointed to the screen. There, that's the person who stole the ball, said Mr. Coffee. Ooh, can you get a close-up, Reggie? Asked Paulina. The kid has a hoodie on and we can't see his face. Sorry, this is as close as we can get, and it's the only angle we have in that room. Reggie, is there any way that I can have a copy of that footage, please? Asked Mr. Coffee. Sir, you're not even supposed to be in here looking at this footage. There's no way I can give you a copy. I'm sorry to put pressure on you, Reggie, said Paulina as she placed her hand on his arm. But please, I promise you can trust Sean. Reggie sighed. Okay, Paulina, where do you want me to send it? Thank you, Reggie. You can email it to... She looked to Mr. Coffee for answers. He produced a business card. You can send it to this email address, please. Thank you, Reggie. They watched as Reggie read the business card and sent the footage. Okay. There, you should be all set, he said. Mr. Coffee shook his head. Thank you, Reggie. Listen, if you ever need anything around here, don't hesitate to contact me. He looked at the card again and said, Sean Hansen? We all call him Mr. Coffee, said Miss T. Mr. Coffee? Reggie repeated. Okay, and you are? Alina, she said with a small wave. We call her Miss T, said Paulina. Mr. Coffee and Miss T, said Reggie. Or Miss T and Mr. Coffee, whichever, said Paulina with a chuckle. Okay, said Reggie. Okay, guys, the game is almost over, said Mr. Coffee. We've got to find this kid before he leaves the building. Let's go. He and Miss T turned and left the room. Paulina started, then stopped. She turned back to Reggie and said, Hey, you want to help us catch a criminal? Reggie smiled and nodded. Yeah, I sure do. The group quickly made their way down the hall. Okay, seeing the surveillance footage was helpful, but it also wasn't, said Mr. Coffee. Yeah, we couldn't actually see the face of the person who stole the ball, said Miss T. They were wearing a hoodie, said Paulina. We can start by looking for the person wearing that color hoodie. There's an entire team wearing that same color. Without seeing their faces, we've got like 50 kids to follow, and we're running out of time, said Mr. Coffee. He checked his watch. Okay, let's split up, said Reggie. Me and Paulina will go this way. You two go that way, and we'll meet back here in 10 minutes. Split up? Asked Paulina. Why do I feel like I just stepped into an episode of Scooby-Doo? Well, that actually would help us to cover more ground in a shorter period of time, said Mr. Coffee. No, it's never a good idea to split up, insisted Paulina. That is the one thing I've learned from every scary movie that I've ever watched. Dangerous things happen. Dangerous things always happen whenever people split up. I actually have to agree with Reggie, said Miss T. The tournament is almost over. If we split up, we can do more with the time that we have. It's not a bad idea. Paulina leaned in close to her friend and whispered, That's because in this scenario you get to go with Fred. Meanwhile, I'm stuck over here with Shaggy. Miss T chuckled and said, Don't be ridiculous. Fine, then you go with Reggie, whispered Paulina. No way, I'm staying with Fred, Sean, whispered Miss T. Okay guys, let's get going. Time is wasting, said Mr. Coffee. If we see anything, we'll call you, and vice versa. Paulina exhaled loudly. I still think this is a mistake. All right, Reggie, let's go. Don't worry, Paulina. I promise I won't let anything bad happen to you, he said. You better keep that promise, Reggie, she said as they walked away. Miss T chuckled, turned to Mr. Coffee and said, Okay, where do you want to start? I can't help but think that I missed something, he replied. Let's go back to the scene of the crime one more time. Mr. Coffee and Miss T entered the room and looked around. Oh, look at that, said Miss T. I didn't notice that door before. Is that a closet? They walked closer to the door and noticed that it was slightly open. I don't think this door was open when we were here earlier, he said. Someone might be in there, she whispered. They slowly and quietly walked over to the door and opened it. They stepped inside and looked around. It was a room being used as a storage space. Hello? Called Miss T. Anyone in here? Said Mr. Coffee. They walked further into the room and examined the items inside. Okay, so it's a room filled with a lot of stuff, said Miss T. She randomly examined items on the shelf. I didn't realize that the youth center had accumulated so many items in such a short period of time, he said as he looked around. He picked up a box and put it back down. Suddenly the door closed behind them, leaving an eerie silence in the quiet space. What just happened? Asked Miss T nervously. Mr. Coffee quickly went to the door and attempted to open it, but it was no use. The door was locked and they were trapped inside. He turned to face her, a strange expression on his face, and said, We're locked in. What? She asked. They trapped us? In a closet? They did, said Mr. Coffee. I'm guessing whomever stole the ball has figured out that we're onto them. He began to pace around the small room. This is crazy. They can't keep us in here. She banged on the door. Hey, let us out of here. It's no use. Everyone's in the gym, and no one can hear us. His voice trailed off for a moment. Then he shook his head and said, We're just going to have to wait for Paulina to make her way back here to this room to find us. I'm calling her right now, said Miss T as she pushed buttons on her phone. She held it up in the air and moved it around. Oh man, I don't have good service in here. How about you? He looked at his phone and said, Only 1 bar, but let me try. He tapped on his phone furiously. No, the call won't go through. What are we going to do? She asked. We're going to wait for Paulina and Reggie. They will come looking for us. Are you okay? Asked Miss T as she stepped closer to him. You're sweating. It's a little hot in here. Not a lot of air. He tugged at the collar of his sweatshirt. It's like they didn't install any ventilation in here. But I guess why would they? It's a closet. He laughed strangely. Sean, are you having a panic attack? I'm sorry, but this room is so small. There's not enough space. Why is it so hot? He removed his sweatshirt wildly. Sean, Miss T grabbed a hold of him. I think you're having a panic attack. It's okay. It's going to be okay. How do you know? What if they never find us? His breathing intensified. They will. They will find us. She looked around. Here, sit down on this crate. I don't think... Sean, I'm right here with you. Everything is going to be okay. Come, sit with me over here. Please? He relented and allowed her to lead him and sit down. He dropped his head between his knees. Then he sat up and stared at the door, nervously, with quick breaths. She hugged him. It's okay. Nothing bad is going to happen. Close your eyes and let's take some deep breaths. She placed her arm around him and slowly rocked them both from side to side. There you go. Good, that's good. Just focus on your breathing. Deep breath in, slow breath out. He continued to stare at the door. Don't look at that silly door. Look at me. She gently turned his face to her. Okay? Yes. Okay. Now what? I can tell you a story to distract you. Oh, I watched this fun, cheesy rom-com mystery movie the other day. Do you like those kinds of movies? I do. I really enjoy them. They're corny and predictable, but they're also wholesome and so much fun. So in this particular one, there was a burglary at a museum, and this FBI agent pretended to be dating a civilian woman, and they attended a fancy gala at the museum to try to stop a necklace from being stolen. But the criminal was already there and was too fast and stole it anyway. They eventually caught the criminal using some sort of special FBI tracker thingy, and you'll never believe who the culprit was. The manager of the museum. It was an inside job. Can you believe it? It was such a good movie. I plan to watch it again. Oh, maybe we should have a movie night. That might be fun. Mr. Coffee gently took her hands and held on to them. I would really like that, he said. They continued to stare at each other. Are you feeling better? She asked. Yes, a little. Thanks for the distraction, he said. Good, she smiled. Do you want me to tell you another story? Miss T? Paulina's panicked voice rang out in the silence. Alina? Mr. Coffee and Miss T jumped up and ran to the door. Paulina, we're in here, she yelled. The door is locked. We're trapped, said Mr. Coffee as he pounded on the door. Can you get us out of here? Asked Miss T as she placed a reassuring hand on Mr. Coffee's arm. "I'll have you out of there in 1 minute," said Reggie. He looked through his keys, unlocked the door, and opened it. Miss T and Mr. Coffee came bounding out of the closet and wrapped Paulina in a big group hug. "I've never been so happy to see you before in my life," said Sean. Paulina responded, See, this is what happens when you split up." She looked them up and down with concern. "Are you guys okay?" Miss T looked at Mr. Coffee, who still seemed a little off kilter, and nodded. "Yes, I think so." "What happened?" asked Reggie. "Someone intentionally locked us in that room," said Miss T. "They must know that we're on to them," said Paulina. She looked at Mr. Coffee. "Hey, what happened to your sweatshirt? Why are you half naked right now?" "He is not half naked. He's wearing a tank. I'll grab his shirt." She went back into the room, grabbed the sweatshirt, and handed it to Mr. Coffee. Paulina had a confused look on her face. "Thank you," Sean spoke softly to her as he put on the sweatshirt. "That so doesn't answer my question," said Paulina. I'm thinking maybe, said Mr. Coffee, who was still trying to get himself together. Miss T placed her hand on his arm. Paulina looked at the touch, and her eyes darted between the two of them curiously. Mr. Coffee spoke again, stronger this time. They probably had to hide the ball. They couldn't leave the center just yet without drawing attention, so they would have to find new places to hide the ball around the center until it was time to exit the building. "Where would be the best place to hide it?" asked Reggie. Mr. Coffee put his hands on his hips, shook his head, and said, "Somewhere in plain sight." The ladies looked at each other and said in unison, "Upstairs in the gym." Mr. Coffee looked at them, nodded, and smiled. "Let's go," he said. The gym was crowded and full of excitement. "How in the world are we going to find them in this sea of people?" asked Miss T. "Let's try looking for the person who stands out," replied Mr. Coffee, "like a teenage player who refuses to remove their hood from their head." They looked around for a moment. "Maybe we should split up again?" suggested Reggie. Miss T and Mr. Coffee exchanged a glance. "Don't worry," said Reggie. "This time we all stay in the gym. You two take this side of the court, and Paulina and I will take the other side. Is that good?" "Well, I don't see any closets in here, so you two should be safe," joked Paulina. Mr. Coffee gave her a mean look and walked away. What did I say?" Miss T shook her head and followed Mr. Coffee. The game was still in progress, with 3 minutes left on the clock. "All right, folks, we're down to the final 3 minutes of this nail biter. The score is tied at 85 apiece. Both teams are leaving it all on the court tonight. The ball is inbounded. Team Golden Arrow has possession." They walked down the sides of the court and looked around. You can feel the tension in the air. Golden Arrow's point guard, Morgan, drives to the basket. Oh, and he gets hit on the way up. That's a foul on Johnson from the Hawks. Morgan heads to the line for two. This is clutch. Morgan lines up. The first free throw is good. Golden Arrows take a 1-point lead. Here comes the second shot, and he nails it. 2-point lead now for the Golden Arrows, 87-85. Here comes the Hawks, wasting no time. Diaz brings it up the court, looking for an opening. He dishes it to King. King with a spin move, and he lays it in. What a move. We're tied again at 87. Miss T and Mr. Coffee stopped and looked around. "Hey, you guys are in the way. I can't see my kid play," said a random person. "Sorry," said Miss T. Mr. Coffee took hold of her hand and led her away. They continued walking down courtside while looking around. Golden Arrow's back on the attack. Morgan passes to Davis on the wing. Davis pulls up for a mid-range jumper. It's good. Golden Arrows retake the lead with just under 2 minutes to go. The Hawks aren't backing down. Diaz drives into the lane. Oh, he's fouled hard by Davis as he goes for the layup. That's Davis's 5th foul. Diaz heads to the line. Diaz takes a deep breath. First shot, nothing but net. Now for the second to tie it up, and he sinks it. 89-89 with a minute 30 left. Golden Arrows ball again. They're slowing it down, trying to find the right shot. Morgan beats it to Clark in the post. Clark with a turnaround jumper, blocked by King. Hawk recovers the ball, and they're off to the races. Diaz pushes the tempo, passes to Johnson. Johnson with a Euro step, and the layup is good. Hawks take the lead 91-89 with under a minute to go. Mr. Coffee and Miss T looked across to the other side of the court. They made eye contact with Paulina. She shook her head, shrugged her shoulders, and kept walking with Reggie. Golden Arrows need a bucket here, folks. Morgan brings it up and finds Davis. Davis drives, kicks it to Clark in the corner. He shoots the 3. It's good. Golden Arrows are back on top, 92-91. Miss T looked over and saw someone with a hood on his head further down the court. She tugged on Mr. Coffee's hand. He looked back at her just as her feet got tangled up on a gym bag. She tripped and fell. Mr. Coffee stooped down to help her. 30 seconds left. Hawks have the ball. Diaz slows it down, dribbles inside, fakes. Ooh, gets fouled on the shot. He'll head to the line for 2 with a chance to take the lead back. First shot. Swish. We're tied again at 92. Second shot. And it's good. Sharks lead 93-92 with 20 seconds left. Sean, look. Miss T pointed from the ground. I think that's him. He looked over to where she pointed. Sean, go catch him. Go, I'll be fine. I'm not leaving you here to get trampled, he said. Plus, Paulina and Reggie are way closer. He framed his hand around his mouth and yelled, Paulina! He looked at Miss T. She nodded, and they both turned and yelled, Paulina! As Miss T struggled to stand up, Paulina turned to look at them in confusion. They pointed to the person with the hood. She and Reggie both took off running after him. They ran down the court, jumping over bags, dodging balls and players. The Golden Arrows have one last chance. Morgan brings it up the court, and they're running out of time. Morgan drives, kicks it to Davis. Davis swings it to Clark at the top of the arc. He's got to look. 3 seconds left. Clark shoots the 3. Paulina jumped and tackled the hooded perpetrator to the ground. It's in at the buzzer. Golden Arrows win. The Golden Arrows win 95-93. What a finish. Unbelievable. Clark hits the game winner. This crowd is going wild. What a game. What a night. The crowd cheered loudly. Paulina threw her hands in the air in victory. Reggie helped her stand, then pulled the suspect up off the floor. Miss T and Mr. Coffee finally arrived next to them. This is what basketball is all about, folks. Pure heart, pure drama, and a finish we'll be talking about for years to come. What a game. I don't mean to toot my own horn, but did you see that? Said Paulina proudly. I actually tackled someone. Pretty proud of yourself, aren't you? Replied Reggie with a smirk. Yep, said Paulina. Reggie removed the suspect's hood and turned him around. You've been caught, kid. Say what? Said Paulina. It can't be, said Miss T. Cade, said Mr. Coffee. Wait, you know this kid? Asked Reggie. That's no kid. That's a grown, thieving man, said Paulina with her hands on her hips. Cade, you stole from your own company? Asked Miss T. Cade attempted to speak. Man, you should be ashamed of yourself, said Reggie. Let me explain, Cade insisted. You have some nerve, said Paulina. You really think we would want to hear whatever lame excuse is about to come out of your mouth? I was trying to stop a kidnapping, said Cade. Everyone paused and stared at him. Paulina whispered, Guys, I think we might need to hear this one. Miss T, Mr. Coffee, Paulina, and Reggie stood courtside, listening to Cade Mitchell, Mr. Coffee's chief of staff. The basketball tournament just ended, but the mystery about the stolen basketball was only beginning. That's quite an unbelievable excuse, Cade, said Sean. It's not an excuse, Mr. Hanson. It's the truth. I swear, said Cade. Wait, said Paulina. Who was about to be kidnapped? My little brother, said Cade. Someone was trying to kidnap your brother? Asked Miss T. But why? Because he wanted me to steal the ball, said Cade. It's worth a lot of money. Who wanted you to steal it? Asked Sean. One of the low-life criminals from the old neighborhood. They call him the Dungeon Master. Dungeon Master? Asked Miss T. Yeah, he must have recognized me when he saw me walking around earlier. Recognized you from what? Asked Reggie. Look, I used to be involved in some bad stuff when I was a teenager, okay? But when my mother moved us out of that neighborhood, I changed my life. My grades got better, I got a scholarship, I went to college, and I got a good job, which eventually led me to this even better job. I'm not the same person I was when I was a kid. No one said that you were, but you did steal the ball and were just about to hand it over to this dungeon master person, said Miss T. No, you have it all wrong, said Cade. The evidence is right there in your hand, man, said Reggie, pointing at the ball. No, you don't know the whole story, said Cade. So then tell us, said Paulina. Look, I have to go. The game is over. There's not enough time, said Cade. He started to walk away. Sean pushed his hand against Cade's chest to stop him and said, Then I guess you better talk fast. He grabbed the bag from Cade and crossed his arms over his chest, unwavering. Cade nervously looked around, rubbed his hand over his face, exhaled deeply, and then spoke. You want to know why they call him the Dungeon Master? Because he's really good at Dungeons and Dragons, replied Paulina. No, because he's known for kidnapping someone that you care about and using that to blackmail you into doing his bidding. The person is usually thrown into this underground space called the dungeon. They're never the same after they get out. Whoa, said Paulina. I was way off on that one. Today he threatened to kidnap my little brother if I didn't give him that ball. I had to do something. So you risked your job to save your brother, said Miss T. But it's all for nothing if I miss the meeting with the Dungeon Master, said Cade. What exactly was your plan? Asked Sean. Cade placed his hands on his head, closed his eyes, exhaled, and then looked at Sean. I took the ball while no one was looking. Then I went and grabbed a new basketball, and I tried to replicate all of the signatures onto it. It took me forever. That's why I missed all your phone calls and texts. Sorry. Wait, replicating signatures? Asked Miss T. What were you trying to do? I know it sounds ridiculous, but my goal was to give the Dungeon Master a fake ball, said Cade. I was going to hide the real ball until after he was gone. That way I could protect my little brother and save the real ball for the raffle winner. That does sound ridiculous, said Reggie. Why didn't you come to us? We could have helped you, said Sean. Because he threatened me, Mr. Hanson, said Cade. He said that if I told anyone, he would just take my brother anyway. I couldn't let that happen. And why did you lock us in that closet? Asked Miss T. I'm sorry. You were snooping around and I didn't want you to ruin my plan. I figured I would just lock you in the room and then come back and get you after the exchange. Plus, I wanted to keep you guys safe, too. Points for that, I guess, said Paulina. So where is this guy? Where are you meeting him? Asked Sean. He told me to meet him after the game inside of that equipment room over there, Cade pointed. That's where I was headed when he pointed at Paulina, tackled me. That really hurt, by the way. He rubbed the side of his body. Don't mess with Robin, said Paulina. She playfully blew on her fist and rubbed it on her shirt. What are you talking about? Reggie whispered. Sorry, Reggie, inside joke, Paulina responded. Mr. Hanson, I need you to know that I would never steal from you, said Cade. I like my job. I worked really hard to get here. You have to believe me. We'll talk about your job later, said Sean. Right now, I'm going to meet with this clown and handle this situation. He turned to walk away, but Cade placed a hand on his arm to stop him. No, Mr. Hanson, you can't go in there. He'll know that I double-crossed him, and he's dangerous. It'll be okay, Cade, said Sean. Trust me. I have a plan. You guys wait here. I'll be back. They watched as Mr. Coffee walked away. Cade once again rubbed his head nervously. Ooh, this is gonna be good, said Paulina. Cade stood in the room silently staring at the man who had brought nothing but stress, aggravation, and fear to what was supposed to be a fun and a successful day for his company and community. He held the bag with the ball in his hand and attempted to hide how nervous he felt on the inside. All right, kid, hand over the ball, said the dungeon master. I give you this ball and our business is done, right? Said Cade. Sure, said the dungeon master with a smirk. I only took it because you threatened to kidnap my brother, said Cade. After I give this to you, you leave my brother alone and I never hear from you again. Kid, that ball is worth way more than your measly little brother any day. Now, hand it over or you'll be the one I take to the dungeon, he demanded. Cade stepped forward, placed the bag with the ball into his hands, and then stepped back. What do you plan to do with it anyway? The dungeon master looked into the bag and quickly inspected the ball. Yes, I can make a pretty penny off of this one. Whoever said that crime doesn't pay wasn't doing it right. Aren't you worried about getting caught? Asked Cade. With all the people in and out of this place today, there's no way they'll figure out it was me. They probably don't even realize that it's missing. So by the time they start checking bags, I'll be long gone. I've been in this game for a long time, kid. They can't catch the dungeon master. And you better keep your mouth shut, or else I'll be back for your brother and you. Understood? Cade put his hands up in compliance and nodded his head. Good. Nice doing business with you, kid. He walked by Cade and smacked him on the shoulder. Don't you mean threatening me? Said Cade. Ah, semantics. I'll be in touch. Ugh, please don't, murmured Cade. Suddenly the door burst open. Police, freeze, hands where I can see them. The dungeon master lifted his hands up and said, Officer, I'm so glad that you're here. This young man stole this prized basketball, and I was just about to return it to the event organizers. What? You liar, said Cade. Officer, I've seen this happen a lot with young men from these poor neighborhoods, he continued innocently. They come from such extreme cases of poverty that they are desperate to make money any way possible. I'm just happy that I was able to be here to stop this young man from continuing with his life of crime. Sir, we know that you are the mastermind behind the stolen ball operation, said the officer. What? No, officer. You have it all wrong, said the dungeon master. He pointed at Cade. That hoodlum stole the ball. I was simply retrieving it to return the ball to its rightful owner. All right, I think we've heard enough, said Sean as he strolled into the room with Miss T, Paulina, and Reggie. You, said the dungeon master as he looked at Mr. Coffee. Ha, said Sean. Oh, this day just got so much better. So, we meet again, Emilio Calvin. You're the dungeon master? Asked Paulina. What? Said Emilio. I have no idea what you're talking about. So the dungeon master also owns a coffee company? Asked Miss T as she crossed her arms. Officer, this man tried to strong-arm me into selling his coffee at my tea cafe. Keyword tea. We don't even sell coffee there. This is a simple misunderstanding, said Emilio. Why don't we all go somewhere where we can sit and sort all of this out, perhaps over a cup of Calvin's coffee? I wouldn't go anywhere with you if you paid me, said Miss T, and I certainly would never drink your disgusting coffee, let alone sell it in my cafe. Emilio sneered at her and took a step forward. Sean stepped in front of Miss T and looked at Emilio menacingly. I dare you. There are plenty of places around the world that would gladly sell Calvin's coffee. Well, you should go find one of them, snapped Paulina, because Miss T is definitely not selling your cruddy coffee, you dungeon dummy. Emilio lunged at Paulina, but Reggie stepped in front of her. The officer caught Emilio, pushed him against the wall, and handcuffed him. Give it up, Calvin. We recorded the entire exchange, said the officer. You are under arrest. Recorded? Emilio looked back at Cade and said, You. Get him out of here, said the officer to his partner. You'll pay for this, yelled Emilio as he left the room. Are you okay? Reggie asked Paulina. Oh, yes, thanks for the save, said Paulina with a smile. Of course, said Reggie. We're a team. You know, I knew there was something off about that man, said Miss T. He just gave me the creeps earlier, and now I know why. She shivered and rubbed her arms. Just as slimy as they come, said Paulina. You good? Sean asked Cade. He nodded and said, Yeah, I'm sorry I got you all mixed up in this. It was never my intention. It's not your fault, Cade, said Miss T, and the police were able to arrest him, so he shouldn't bother you again. Thanks, Hanson, said the officer as he shook Mr. Coffee's hand. We've been trying to catch the dungeon master for years. Now we finally have something that we can charge him with. It's not much, but it's a start. Glad to be of service, man, said Sean. We still on for golf next Sunday? You know it. They pounded fists and the officer left. Golf? Said Paulina. Yeah. Golf? Yeah. Golf. Yes, Paulina. What's the big deal? Sean Hansen, still so mysterious. Still so much more mystery left to unfold. What are you talking about? Joked Mr. Coffee. I'm an open book. With like thousands of pages left to read, said Paulina. Mr. Coffee chuckled. By the way, she lowered her voice so only he could hear her. What exactly happened with you and Miss T in that closet? He shook his head and said, That's another story for another day. Right now, let's get the real ball situated and get out of here. Cade, let's go. Then he walked away. Paulina followed after him. What do you mean another day? Right now is the right time for me. Come on, don't make me wait another day for the story. It's so unfair. So what happens now? Asked Reggie. Now, said Miss T, we find out what happened to the real ball. Cade removed the carefully wrapped basketball from its hiding place in the closet. He unwrapped the ball and showed it to everyone. Wow, I can't believe the missing ball was in there the whole time, said Miss T. We were in there and I never saw it. It's because you weren't looking for it, replied Cade. It was hidden in plain sight alongside the storage items. Come on, that's not really plain sight now, is it? Whispered Paulina to Reggie, who laughed. Let me see something, said Mr. Coffee. He held the fake ball next to the real one in Cade's hands. They examined and compared the two. That's a pretty good counterfeit that you made, said Paulina. Art is a hobby of mine, so I treated the ball like an art project as I attempted to replicate each signature, said Cade. I was just trying to make it look realistic enough for the dungeon master to believe it, but I'm no artist. No, you are definitely an artist, said Miss T as she inspected the ball. You really think so? Most definitely, said Miss T. The most I can draw is a smiley face, said Paulina. It's probably more like a side-eyeing smirky face, said Mr. Coffee. They all laughed. Okay, let's get this ball to the gym for the raffle. Sorry, Sean, we're too late. I heard Reggie say that they did the drawing while we were busy handling this situation, said Miss T. Yeah, but one thing worked in our favor. The winner wasn't actually here to receive it, said Reggie. Good. That's good. We can still contact the winner and get the ball delivered to them, said Sean. He looked at Cade and said, I need you to reach out to them on Monday. Cade looked at him with hopeful eyes. You mean I still have my job? Sean paused. He just realized what he said. Miss T placed her hand on his arm to reassure him. Yes, said Sean. Let's meet in my office first thing on Monday morning to discuss it further. Thank you, Mr. Hanson, sir. I'll be there, said Cade. Then he excitedly walked away. Cade, said Sean. Cade stopped and turned around to face him. Aren't you forgetting something? The ball. Oh, sorry, Cade said with embarrassment. He walked back and carefully placed the ball into Mr. Coffee's hands. See you on Monday morning, sir. Then he turned and left. That was very kind of you not to fire him, Sean, said Miss T. Yeah, maybe, said Mr. Coffee as he looked at both basketballs. You better put that man on probation, said Paulina. People who steal your stuff cannot be trusted. Oh, really? He replied, looking up at her. This from the woman who stole my car and took it on a joyride 2 weeks ago? I didn't steal it, said Paulina. I simply moved it from one location to another location without telling you. That sounds exactly like what happened with the basketball, said Reggie as he scratched his head. Reggie, whose side are you on? Whispered Paulina. Plus, I seem to recall that someone else also absconded with your vehicle that same day. Thank you for your office expertise, Paulina, but I will handle the Cade situation just fine without your help, said Mr. Coffee. Would you mind holding this one, please? He spoke softly as he handed the fake ball to Miss T, who responded, Oh yes, sure thing. Mr. Coffee carefully rewrapped the real ball, looked at the closet, and said, Okay, are you ladies all set? I am more than ready to get out of here. Yes, we just need to grab our things from this morning's booth, said Miss T. Oh, I can help you with those items, said Reggie. Thanks for your help, Reggie. Mr. Coffee shook his hand. Happy to help, sir, said Reggie. Somehow, I get the feeling that you were more than just an ordinary volunteer. I'm just a man trying to help the community, said Mr. Coffee. I can see that too, said Reggie. All right, let's go grab your things. Thank you, Reggie, said Paulina as they walked out of the room. Would you believe that Mr. Coffee actually forced me to carry a box this morning? I'm telling you, some men are so selective with their chivalry. Miss T and Mr. Coffee slowly followed several steps behind them while they spoke with each other privately. If you want, you can go and wait for us in the car, said Miss T. I'm okay, he said. She looked at him in disbelief. Really? He insisted. They looked at each other for a moment. So, she said. So, he replied with a smile. Do you want to talk about what happened in the closet? She asked nervously. I was kind of hoping you'd forgotten about that, he said. Miss T laughed. Nope, can't forget a thing like that. He clutched the ball and said, I'm going to make a long story really short and simply say 4 words. School bully trapped locker. Yikes, said Miss T. I didn't even realize that it still affected me this much. Well, I'm not usually trapped in small spaces, as you could imagine, he said with a small laugh. He looked down at the ground. Miss T placed her hand on his arm and said, But you got through it, and just know that I'm here if you ever want to talk. Thanks. He looked at her and said, I don't think I could have gotten through that without you. He returned his gaze to the ground. And to tell you the truth, I'm kind of ashamed that you had to see me like that. Please don't be ashamed. It was a rough moment, but I'm glad that I was able to be there for you, she said. And you are much stronger than you realize. She smiled at him. He smiled and looked back at the ground. Well, as much as I enjoy spending time with you, I would rather next time that it not be a hostage situation in a small, locked room. They both laughed. Agreed. No more hostage situations, she laughed. I actually have a great idea for something that we can do, he said. Hey guys, you're moving awfully slow for people who claim they really want to get out of here, Paulina called out. Mr. Coffee exhaled. She does not make it easy to like her, does she? Miss T chuckled. Let's go. The quicker we grab our things, the quicker we can leave. They accelerated their pace and caught up to the others. Took you long enough, said Paulina. What, did you need more closet time? She asked, wiggling her eyebrows. Paulina, said Miss T, with a warning in her tone. She placed the counterfeit ball on the table and started packing up items. Oh, to be a fly on the wall of that closet, said Paulina. Give it a break, will you, Paulina? Said Mr. Coffee exhaustedly. He carefully placed his ball on the table and started gathering the boxes. I was just joking around. What's got you two in such a tizzy? Asked Paulina. How about we just forget about the closet? Pack up and go, said Miss T. She moved swiftly to put items in the boxes. Yes, forget about the closet. We don't ever need to talk about the closet, said Mr. Coffee. What the heck happened in that closet? Asked Reggie. Miss T stopped and said, I will give you $10 to stop talking about the closet. And I will double that offer if you eliminate the word closet from your vocabulary altogether, said Mr. Coffee. $20 to stop talking about the closet? I'll take that. Reggie chuckled. Paulina, you in? You don't know these two like I do, said Paulina. They are hiding something, and I want to know what it is. Paulina, said Miss T, Sean and I were discussing the possibility of having a movie night. Movie night? Yes. The three of us could all get together and watch this fun holiday movie that I just told him about, said Miss T. She looked at Mr. Coffee, and he nodded. Okay, I'll bite. What movie? Asked Paulina. The one that I just saw, it was with the guy whose name I can't remember right now, but it was called something like Holiday, Hustle, Caper, Christmas, or something. That sounds like the fakest movie title that I've ever heard in my life, said Paulina. Well, that's not the actual title, said Miss T. I said I don't remember what it was called. Mr. Coffee chimed in. Didn't you say there was an actor in it from that other holiday movie that you like? Yes, the movie where the guy trained dogs, but he was also a chocolatier, said Miss T. While he was also running a dance studio and a wine vineyard in Paris, right? Chuckled Mr. Coffee. He was doing a lot. Laughed Miss T. I hope you didn't accidentally give any chocolate to those dogs, joked Reggie. That sweet holiday movie would take a dark turn. Reggie, don't you join in this nonsense. I know they're just trying to distract me, said Paulina. But I do love movie nights. Miss T laughed. And where would we watch this movie? We can do it at my place, said Mr. Coffee. At the mansion? Asked Paulina. Yep, you can even invite Mike if you want. Who's Mike? Asked Reggie. Her boyfriend, said Miss T. Oh, you have a boyfriend? Asked Reggie. Yes, I do. Reggie nodded his head quietly. So, movie night at the mansion, she continued. I'm in. Will there be snacks? Mr. Coffee smiled. Of course, you just let me know what snacks you want, and I'll have a full spread set up for us. Oh, yes, I like the sound of this a lot, said Paulina. And Reggie, you are also invited, said Mr. Coffee. Oh, thanks, man, said Reggie, but it sounds like I'd be the fifth wheel on this double date. It's not a double date, said Miss T. It's not? Asked Reggie. We're just friends watching a movie together, said Mr. Coffee. Friends who spend time in closets and then don't tell their other friend what happened in that closet, whispered Paulina. And here we go again, said Mr. Coffee. So, Reggie, would you like to join us? Asked Miss T. Yeah, I'll be there, he said as he looked at Paulina, who was too busy packing the boxes on the table to notice. Okay, be sure to give us your number so we can contact you with the details. Here, I'll take it, said Mr. Coffee. The two men stood together and typed on their phones. So, are you excited for movie night? Miss T asked Paulina. Paulina stepped closer and pointed at her. I know what you're trying to do, Alina Messina, but I saw the arm touching, not to mention the fact that Mr. Coffee was all sweaty and not wearing his shirt when we found you in that closet, and I have questions. She crossed her arms in determination. Miss T laughed. Your imagination has you way off course. So then tell me, Paulina insisted. Miss T shook her head playfully. "All right, Reggie, let's grab these boxes and head to the car," said Mr. Coffee. "One sec, let me just finish packing this one," said Paulina as she quickly went back to the box. "So what movie did you say we were going to watch?" asked Reggie. "The real question is," said Miss T brightly, "how do you guys feel about cheesy, predictable rom-coms where two people are in love, but it takes them an entire 90-minute movie to figure it out?" Mr. Coffee looked at her with a smile and said, "I feel ready for the adventure." The end. I do hope that you enjoyed this story. Join us again next time for another tale from our Bedtime Tea collection. Until next time, sleep well, jolly tea drinkers, and may your cups overflow with joy and peace.